Oh, purple hoods and green outfits. Yes. Well, the Spider-Man trailers continues with more plot details from Spider-Warren. This is their version of a trailer for now. You know, this will suffice. This will satiate the spider buds. Spider buds being, you know, like it's a taste bud. That's the thing, the reference I was making. Spider-Man No Way Home plot details for Tobey and Andrew. I did hear that there were some like new plot details that came out that were from good sources recently, not just some like Reddit leaks or something like that.
What's going on, everybody? It's Warren. Welcome back to the Cosmic Wonder, and today we actually have quite a bit of information about Spider-Man No Way Home, specifically involving Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire, when they are going to be appearing in the film and what type of role they are going to have in the film. Also, a bit of information about what the villains are going to look like and a little bit more information about that trailer. And the great thing is that all of these reports today are coming from very legitimate sources, and I think some fans might not particularly enjoy this report, especially if you are a Tom Holland Spider-Man fan. If he is your favorite, you may not like this report. However, if you are a Andrew Garfield or Tobey Maguire Spider-Man fan, then you probably will like this report. And so let's go on with this first report. And this first report is coming from Daniel Richmond, or Daniel RBK.
Reliable guy. Reliable guy.
A two-part report. The first part is when Daniel replied to a tweet on Twitter. Somebody asked him if Tobey is a supporting role or a action cameo, and his reply was, "I heard that from the moment they appear in the movie, Tobey and Andrew become co-leads to Holland." Now, this is the report that I was talking about in the beginning, where I stated some people may not like this, especially if you are a Tom Holland fan. A lot of people were kind of upset with the Doctor Strange announcement when they stated that Doctor Strange was going to be appearing in Spider-Man No Way Home as sort of a mentor for Peter Parker. A lot of people were pretty upset about this because they want Tom Holland's Spider-Man to be on his own. In Spider-Man Homecoming, he had Tony Stark. In Civil War, Avengers Endgame, and Avengers Infinity War, again, he had Tony Stark, even though he saved Tony's life at one point in Endgame.
Okay. Guys, listen. Now, we did a video not long ago talking about our honest concerns for Spider-Man No Way Home. One of them being that this might not feel like a Tom Holland film, a Peter Parker Tom Holland film. So I get where Warren's coming from. And 9 times out of 10, I'm likely to just be like, yes, at the end of the day, if that is in fact true, that if they are co-leads to him, most of the spotlight will be given to them. That doesn't mean Tom Holland wouldn't be the lead still, but the spotlight and the most talked about things would be about them. However, I'm also optimistic because I am reminded of Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, where you had a Spider-Man Miles Morales, and there's a bunch of other Spider-Men, and it still felt like a Miles Morales movie. So I'm holding out faith that even if this is true, that it could still feel like a, you know, Tom Holland-led movie. But more Tobey and Andrew, why would I complain about that?
Well, and maybe they'll bring his character out. Having more Spider-Man around maybe could help deconstruct Peter that much further.
Kind of like Miles Morales in Spider-Man in the Spider-Verse. Yeah.
Exactly.
And then in Spider-Man Far From Home, he had another mentor, and that mentor was really happy. Mysterio faked it for a while, and Peter was pretty happy to have him as a mentor, but of course we know how that played out. But Happy brought the plane, brought the new suits, gave him the pep talk, and that was fine, because that was a little bit less mentorship than he had in the previous film, and fans really wanted to see Spider-Man go out on his own in Spider-Man No Way Home, but it doesn't appear that's going to be the case. Now it looks like he's not only going to have Doctor Strange, but also Tobey Maguire Spider-Man and Andrew Garfield Spider-Man as well, fighting right beside him. However, don't get too upset about this yet, because if we think about this, it kind of makes sense if we consider what the movie is really going to be about.
There's a
and
bunch
where
of
the villains
villains
are coming from. The movie is really
a bunch
about
of
the
villains.
multiverse. There's going to be a multiversal problem, right? There will be villains coming into the main universe from other different universes. And some of these villains are going to be a little bit more beyond our Peter Parker, a little bit more for him to handle. And if you consider the fact that there are going to be like 6, 7 villains in this film, essentially the Sinister Six, he's going to need some help. Yes. Our Peter has come a long way, but he is definitely going to need some help to take on 6 or 7 villains alone.
And it won't be the Avengers.
Pretty soon, because the second half of this report is replying to Daniel stating that that Andrew and Tobey are going to be co-leads, a person then said, "Awesome, I hope they come halfway through instead of the end," in which Daniel replied, "They are." So Tobey and Andrew are seemingly going to appear halfway through the film, which would make sense as far as the movie is concerned. If you're going to have a bunch of villains breaking out from the multiverse, it would make sense that the other heroes come at the same time.
Or instead of the same time, what I could see being the situation, instead of like, all the villains are here, oh thank God, other Spider-Man showed up at the same time too. I think he would probably be in a position if all these villains are set to appear. Like we know of a few for sure, but there's others rumored that are not 100% confirmed yet. I'd imagine that in the first act of Act 2, that's when all the other villains start showing up. Yeah. And it's becoming increasingly difficult for Peter Parker, Tom Holland, to be handling this. And then eventually, like around the midpoint, where it looks like, based off of screenplay structure, what I'd imagine is the midpoint is when they would show up being like, oh, thank God, solution, but then things somehow start getting worse from there. What looks like a solution actually could be leading down the downfall before the all's lost moment in the Dark Night of the Soul in the finale of the film.
You got this whole thing beat it out.
if that is, I can see it working that way.
Yeah. Well, and I can also see just an emotional dynamic of like, okay, this might be too much for Tom Holland Spider-Man to handle. Plus, you'd have these two other Spider-Man for whom they kind of would feel responsible for stepping in and taking care of these particular villains from their universe,
Exactly. Yeah, they were like fighting them. Like, where'd they go? I want to keep my fight going.
Well, I'm sure they would be willing when they figure out what's actually going on.
I know, Jimmy. Yeah.
And from this moment where all of the villains come from different universes and we get Tobey and Andrew, this is really where Doctor Strange's role comes in. Obviously, Doctor Strange 2, the Multiverse of Madness, is going to be dealing with the multiverse in madness, which is seemingly going to start in Loki. And keep in mind, Michael Waldron, who wrote Loki and Doctor Strange 2, told me personally when I interviewed him that there are some things in Loki that will affect Doctor Strange 2, which of course will in turn affect Spider-Man No Way Home. So at the center of it all, at the center of the multiverse exploding, Doctor Strange is there. And his focus in Spider-Man No Way Home is probably going to be figuring out how to get these villains back. So I wouldn't expect to see a ton of him. Most of the focus should be on Tom Holland at first, a little bit of Doctor Strange, and then on the 3 Spider-Men.
Sounds like what they'd be doing with like Doctor Strange in this movie, while directly affecting the plot of No Way Home, is that in some ways it would serve as the ultimate setup for Multiverse of Madness, sort of like the prequel.
Well, yeah, it's gonna hand the ball off to Doctor Strange because whatever happens in this movie is gonna get so out of hand that it's like, this isn't a Peter problem anymore. This isn't a New York issue. This is a world and also space, time, and spiritual realms problem.
But for that to work, he would have to be more than just some cameo appearance. He'd have to serve as like a supporting character in the film. But we'll see.
Doctor Strange may even bring in the other Spider-Man himself to help our Peter Parker. That may be something we never figure out until the movie comes out, but of course, if I hear anything, I'll update you. And as far as the villains are concerned, Daniel did put out another reminder in a tweet that the Green Goblin is going to be the main villain of the film. And speaking of villains, it looks like we got a little bit more info today on what they're going to look like. And this report is coming from superhero theorist at murphysmultiverse.com. And the people over there have come in with some pretty clutch leaks lately, specifically superhero theorist. And we got some information from them replying to a tweet that said, "All I want is a more accurate looking Goblin, not that Power Ranger BS we got from the first film." In which superhero theorist replied, "Expect the old
purple hoods and green outfits, yellow shirts and green yes,
purple pants and lab coats, green shirts and khakis, and trench coats with tentacles will all be in season." Now, obviously, this is a description of what some of the villains are going to look like.
I loved it, hearing just the purple hoods and green outfits.
It's like, that's the perfect phrase. Oh, everyone's gonna have a classic Loki.
But would it look so much like the comic, or what we've seen from like the animated shows, which are inspired by the comics? Because it's so mechanical what he wears before. Green Goblin specifically.
That makes me super curious, because I'm like, expect the old, prepare for the new. So is it going to be a hybrid of like something, that's mechanized and practical, but also that's way more resembling of the classic look? Or is it going to be like there's an interlude where like all the Sinister Six are in their comic book accurate costumes for a minute or something? Like, I can see the possibility for either almost.
I really like the way Alfred Molina looks in Spider-Man 2, but you know, like getting some more of the colors into his outfit. Oh man, if they have like the colorful outfits, I didn't even think about that. That'd be nuts.
And I mean, they said Electro's getting a recoloration,
Yeah.
so maybe it's just a byproduct of the multiverse.
But I want to specifically focus on the Green Goblin because it looks like there's going to be a key difference between the Green Goblin we see in this film and what we saw before in the past. The description for the Green Goblin is purple hoods and green
come on, that
outfits.
looks so
Now, the
great.
purple hood implies that the Green Goblin is not going to have a helmet or a mask. In fact, in another tweet, Superhero Theorist said, "One of the things that scared me as a kid with Defoe's Green Goblin was that we never actually saw his face when he was Green Goblin, except for a few times, and he was able to strike fear with just his voice alone. Imagine what he'll look like now when he doesn't have the mask." Now, at one point in time, there were reports stating that the villains were going to be taken from their respective universes right before they die. And if this is true, that means the Green Goblin did not have a mask on right before he died in the very first Spider-Man film.
Give me a purple hood.
I need to mix up my color palette.
But if it is true, that would explain why the Green Goblin has no mask, and he apparently is going to be wearing a purple hood. Now, of course, as I said, there has been a little bit of a trailer update, and I wouldn't leave you without talking about that. Now, this report comes from, again, Daniel Richmond, and he is extremely accurate when it comes to trailers. And yesterday on Twitter, he said, "To be clear, I usually hear a few days before, nothing yet. So, likely not dropping this week, and was told not to expect
Good, because we're working on a little opening sketch for the trailer rigs.
Nice to get some buffer.
He was usually very accurate about when
much as
trailers are dropping as well. He was accurate about Shang-Chi, The Eternals, etc. And this person basically stated the same thing. Haven't heard anything yet, and if it was coming out soon, I would have. So sadly, I wouldn't expect it soon. Now, I have heard reports stating that it could be coming with Black Widow, but I personally actually think that they would wait until Loki is over with before releasing the trailer, because I think the ending is really going to set up the multiverse of madness and Spider-Verse. And again, Daniel's very accurate with trailer releases,
Cool,
and my guy
Sony.
said the same thing.
Be cool
at
if
this point
Sony
in
plays ball
I'm
this
not
time.
expecting it with
Yeah.
Black Widow, but
Instead of
we'll
that
have to
Far
wait
From
and see.
Home
Let me
trailer
know your
shit.
thoughts on these
Rumors
reports in the
Marvel's
comments
controlling
down
the
below. Are
marketing
you
a bit more?
happy or mad about this report that states Tobey Maguire and
I'm cool
Andrew
with it.
Garfield are going to be co-leads and coming in about halfway through the film? Let me know in the comments down below, and don't forget to like this video and subscribe with notifications turned on so you don't miss out on any of the latest Spider-Man or MCU videos. For live updates, you can always follow me on Instagram and Twitter. And
Please
as
do.
always, thank you all so much for watching.
Woof,
Woof woof.
I'll just end it with saying that I'd be more befuddled if they were co-leads from like 15 to 20 minutes into the movie. If it's halfway through, that's not a big deal to me, because it gives time to still really establish who your main character is in your first half of the movie, right? But guys, what'd you think about this report here? These are reliable sources. He was talking. These are very a lot of how we've been able to be on top of things, especially with like breaking news or breaking trailer information, has been specifically from the sources he listed here.
Yeah.
So I absolutely trust these sources too. Leave your thoughts down below, subscribe, click that bell, hit that like button. Last but not least, let's do a
Daniel Gallagher. Daniel, I just wanted to say thanks for coming to our live stream the other day. For some reason, Spider-Man stories make me think of you because of the place we're not going to talk about. I think of chemicals exploding and then you getting insane powers and then having to mask your Scottish accent to do an American accent when you finally get cast in some kind of superhero-like scenario. Because let's face it, most of the greatest heroes have American accents. But Daniel, this is getting off-road. Thanks again for just it was cool to know that in the middle of our afternoon, probably at the point in time in your day where you would want to just crash and go to sleep, you were listening and hanging out with us. And, it made me feel like the world wasn't such a big multiversal place, but a little tiny dot where we could all hang out together. So I hope you're doing well, and thanks again for showing up and showing your support. It means a lot.